Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to talk about something that is surprisingly overlooked in education and research, something that I believe is foundational, not just for academic work, but also for critical thinking and ethical decision making. We hear a lot in academic writing and English for academic purposes about the difference between fact and opinion. That's practically a standard lesson in any writing course. But how often do we talk about the difference between fact and reality? Hardly ever. You will find philosophers tackling this issue, yes, but within academic research, education, or policy circles, the conversation is almost non existent. So today, I want to take a deep dive into that distinction. We are going to explore why facts don't always equal reality, why this matters for researchers, and how it affects the way we view students' data and knowledge production. Let's start simple. Facts describe reality, but they don't encompass it. Facts describe aspects of reality. That's true, but they don't capture the whole of it. You can gather hundreds, even thousands of facts to try and understand something and still miss the bigger picture because reality is often more complex, more layered, and more nuanced than any collection of facts can show. To explain this, let's look at a few examples from different contexts. Example one, in everyday's life, let's say you observe something like this. Fact, Maria smiles every time she talks to Alex. Now that's a fact. It's observable behavior. But let's look at the reality behind it. Maria might actually dislike Alex. Maybe she is just being polite, or she feels socially obligated to smile. So, what we're seeing doesn't necessarily reflect what she is truly feeling. So, here is the point: the fact doesn't reveal the reality, it only tells you what's happening on the surface. Let's now turn to science. The fact is, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. That's a fact based on observation. But the reality, the earth is rotating on its axis, and that's what gives us the appearance of the sun rising and setting. So again, facts describe what we see, but reality explains what's actually going on, and something they tell very different stories. Now, let's take a philosophical lens. The fact, for example, is people perceive colors differently. What looks blue to me might look slightly different to you. That's a fact. But here is the reality: color isn't an inherent property of objects, it's a perception, something our brains create when interpreting different wavelengths of light. So in this case, the fact reflects the subjective experience. But reality points to a deeper structure, something more universal, even if it's not visible to the naked eye. Now, let's bring this into education. The fact is, a student scores 45% on a standardized math test. On the surface, it looks like the student lacks understanding. But what is the reality? Maybe they have test anxiety. Maybe they are learning in a second language. Maybe they had a rough morning or are going through stress at home. Or maybe, just maybe, the test isn't designed to measure what they actually know. So, yes, the score is a fact, but it doesn't tell the full story of the student's ability, potential, or learning context. Here is another one. The fact is, a student misses 30% of his school days this term. That's a data point. But the reality might be that the student is caring for a sick parent, or they have unreliable transportation, maybe they're being bullied, maybe school feels unsafe or over unwelcoming. The fact shows absenteeism, but the reality tells us why And that's the part we need if we want to make a difference. In education, facts are often used for reporting and accountability, grades, attendance, test scores. But here's the problem: facts can obscure reality, they can become walls instead of windows. If we are not careful, we risk misjudging students, misunderstanding problems, and misdesigning solutions. Take the 40% math score again. The measurable is measurable, it's verifiable. But does it mean the student is bad at math? Not necessarily. It might just mean the student had a bad day, or the test format didn't match their learning style, or the language of the questions was unfamiliar. The reality, the truth about that student's understanding is invisible to the numbers. And when we mistake fact for reality, we don't real we do real harm. The label, the track, all based on partial, decontextualized information. Some things with attendance. The student misses the school, we flag it, but if we don't know why, our interventions may miss the mark. Maybe they need support, not punishment. Maybe they need empathy, not data analytics. So, what's the takeaway? When we confuse facts with reality, we risk labeling students unfairly, diagnose problems without looking for root causes, create policies that treat symptoms instead of systems. But when we recognize the difference, we move from a data driven mindset to student centered one. We start asking, what's behind this fact? What am I not seeing here? So, do we bridge the gap between fact and reality? Use facts as starting points, not endpoints. Pair data with qualitative insights from teachers, parents, and the students themselves. Stay curious, cultivate empathy, listen to the lived experiences behind the numbers. Design assessments and interventions that reflect context, not just performance. Let's turn now to research, because this problem isn't just in the schools, it's in the scholarship too. In academic research, we treat facts like gold: statistical results, coded themes, survey data. We build careers on them. But let's be honest, facts are outputs of methods, not reality itself. A fact might be 78% of participants preferred option A, or students reported low engagement. That's data, that's a fact. But those facts are limited by how we collect them, what questions we asked, how we coded responses, who we included or excluded, and what assumptions we brought to the table. Let's say a survey shows low satisfaction with online learning. That's a fact. But the reality might be that students are struggling with mental health, loneliness, unstable internet, or economic hardship. Things the survey didn't even ask about. The facts point toward the truth, but they don't contain it. Methodology has limits. Every method has blind spots. Quantitative research might miss nuance and personal meaning. Qualitative research may miss generalizability. Even mixed methods can't escape their own frameworks and assumptions. So again, facts are method bound, reality is not. So what should researchers do? Acknowledge the limits of their data, be transparent about what's missing, reflect on how context, culture, and power shape results. Avoid overstating what the numbers prove. Good research doesn't just report facts, it interprets them. It respects the complexity of the world it studies. So here's my conclusion. Facts matter, but they are not the whole truth. in both education and research, the reality behind the numbers is where meaningful insight and real change begins. Recognizing the difference between fact and reality is not just a philosophical exercise, it's a practical, ethical, and deeply human responsibility. So, whether you are a teacher, a policymaker, a student, or a researcher, look beyond the numbers. Ask better questions. Be open to complexity, because that's where the real work and the real learning begins. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll be unpacking more overlooked issues in academic life in my upcoming videos. See you next time.